What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here. We're going my first look for week 6 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. We're going position by position, just taking a first look at the entire slate, first initial reactions to matchups, pricing, and then we'll try to build a lineup as we talk through it. And of course, for a more detailed game-by-game breakdown, going over cash games and tournaments, I'll have a video on Saturday morning doing just that. If you do enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like down below. Scott Chan for brand new. Let's dive right into it. Hey, really quick, if you like what you see on the screen behind me, it's available at cpendfs.com and link down in the description or the pinned comment website I built myself. I'm not a big company, just one guy, do my best out here, but tons of content over there for the main slate and flagship showdowns for DraftKings and FanDuel. So you want to come in and check it out, be my guest. And you also get your first week free. And now that that's out of the way, we'll move on to the quarterback position. And this is the foundation of our build because it's going to dictate several key pieces in our lineup. And the reason is because we are building for a tournament in this specific video. Of course, if you want to build differently, you can certainly do that. There is not one way to play DFS. This is just the way I prefer to build in my videos for you all to try to kind of learn a specific process that I typically use in single entry type builds. And I'll be honest, I don't think the quarterback position is as easy as it was last week. It was very easy just to click on Justin Fields and cash game specifically and move on. That is probably one of the highest quarterback ownerships we will see across the board this season, at least on a main slate. It was very condensed to Justin Fields. And while it was a very rocky start, you don't get paid out for how they play in the first half. I ended up doing very well. Justin Fields in, I guess, garbage time. He made the game a bit closer, but it was really never in contention for the New York Jets. But either way, we're going to start here with Baker Mayfield, $6,600. MVP candidate Baker Mayfield. Awesome to see. He's my favorite quarterback in real life. I don't let bias get in the way here, but I am interested in tournaments. 47.5 point over under. They are playing at home. They are playing San Fran. It's a 3-point spread. I think this is a pretty stackable game here. I think the Seattle Seahawks defense is pretty solid. And the fact that Baker Mayfield had one of the better games in NFL history at the quarterback position, like just 4 incompletions or something, and nearly 400 passing yards, and another comeback victory. Just Baker keeps on crushing, and that's with injuries to the offensive line. That's with injuries at wide receiver, with Mike Evans being gone. Jalen McMillan, the dude just keeps crushing. Bucky Irving has also been out. So the Baker train is moving. I don't think this is a cash game play, especially at this price point, but I will say he is running the ball a little bit this year, nearly 30 rushing yards per game, which is nice. 2 passing touchdowns, 256 yards, throwing the ball nearly 35 times per game. If you were stacking with Baker, Ibuka, of course, has been sensational as a rookie. Outside of that, not really any pass catching options you can count on a weekly basis, but if you are using Baker, I think you almost have to use Ibuka, and depending on the injury situation for San Francisco, we all saw what happened on Thursday night. It was Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne, basically playing like Tom Brady and Randy Moss. We'll have to see. I don't know if Purdy's going to be back. I don't know if any of the wide receivers are going to be back, so that's why this is more of a casual video, because right now, we do not know. Dak Prescott, $6,500. Another quarterback that's been crushing it recently. They throw the ball a ton. Their defense is horrific, and they're on the road in Carolina. I wish they'd be playing at home, but he had a great day on the road in MetLife last week. Now, the Carolina defense is not as bad as it was last year. I think that is 100% certain. They were historically bad last season. Currently versus quarterbacks, we're still dealing with a pretty small sample size, 5 games for most teams, but they're on the 8th fewest points per game to the quarterback position. We will see if CeeDee Lamb is back or not. Like I said, guys, we just do not know these injury situations as of right now. But for Dak Prescott, I mean, it would be great, but so far it has not mattered the past 2 weeks. That CeeDee Lamb has been out. He has been absolutely crushing. They play at a fast pace. He's averaging close to 275 passing yards per game this year and throwing the ball nearly 40 times per game. This is another pretty easily stackable game here, so Dak Prescott would be a fine tournament play for me. I don't think I'd get there in cash games, but I'll be honest, I really don't think there's a cash game lock at the quarterback position currently, so we're going to have to try to figure that out. Matthew Stafford, he has been awesome in previous weeks. Does not run the football. I know Dak doesn't really run the football too much, but Matthew Stafford's actually averaging negative rushing yards per game this year, of course, with some kneel downs. But this is a great matchup versus Baltimore, which sounds crazy to say, but they are allowing the second most points per game to quarterbacks so far. They have a 27.5 implied team total, same as Dak Prescott on the road. So 2 very similar spots here, although the Dallas game is projected to be slightly closer with a little bit higher of an over-under. And of course, with Lamar Jackson being hurt, that just kind of caps this game's upside. If Lamar Jackson was healthy, of course, that spread's going to look a lot different, especially with Los Angeles on the road. But if you are playing Matthew Stafford, he is one of the easiest quarterbacks to stack with, because Matthew Stafford is getting you no points if his wide receivers don't go off, so it just directly correlates well. Puka Nacua, he is awesome. I mean, early run projections have him decently above 20 fantasy points, which is crazy at the wide receiver position, almost close to 25. So love Puka, love Devontae Adams, and I mean, yeah, if you're playing Stafford, I think you almost have to double stack. Moving down to Justin Herbert, he finds himself in a great matchup versus Miami on the road, allowing the third most points per game at the quarterback position. Los Angeles has dropped 2 games recently. I mean, 2 games I didn't really expect them to drop, but pretty easy spot here, and I would expect them to get back on track. Now, Amari Hampton is out, of course, and we know that Najee Harris is gone, so we are left with Hassan Haskins and Vidal, however you say his name. That might just mean they throw the ball a little bit more. They're still throwing the ball quite a bit this year, but I think Justin Herbert's going to have to win this game with his arm. So at $6,300, honestly, this might be the way we end up going in cash games. I have not even projections, like fully or anything, any final projections, just some very early runs. But he does run the ball a little bit. And we're averaging nearly 30 rushing yards. Actually, yeah, 30.6 rushing yards per game for Justin Herbert. 3 easily stackable options with Ladd McConkey, who finally got into the end zone last week, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnson, who can be a bit up and down, but this is a very soft spot versus Miami. And if you want to run back, use Devon Chan or whoever you want. Darren Waller, Jalen Waddle. I'm fine with any of those 3. So this is definitely going to be a game that we probably end up targeting quite a bit. Jordan Love, this game looks a little bit lopsided. Cincinnati goes on the road in Green Bay. They did just trade for Joe Flacco. I'm assuming we're still going to see Jake Browning start at least this game, but as of right now, I don't know. It's Tuesday. It's too early to say. But either way, they are 2 touchdown favorites, 30.5 implied team total. Love is very hard to stack with because the ball could go anywhere. It could go to Romeo Doubs. It could go to Tucker Kraft. It could go to Matthew Golden. It could go Savion Williams, Malik Heath. I don't know. Dontavian Wicks. Good luck figuring that out. Josh Jacobs might end up being the better play here. But if they're going to have a 30.5 implied team total, they got to get here somehow, I should say. And if Jordan Love throws 3 touchdowns at $6,200, not bad. You can run it back with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Don't really want to do Chase Brown. He's been horribly inefficient this year, but we did see some life from Jamar Chase last week, which was nice to see. It took him a little bit, but he did end up getting there. Drake May at $5,900 took down Buffalo in Buffalo. Very, very impressive. He'll be on the road in New Orleans this week, who got a win last weekend versus the New York Giants. They are 3.5-point favorites. Stephon Diggs coming off a really big game in a revenge spot versus the Buffalo Bills. Currently, the New Orleans is 24th versus quarterbacks. Pretty solid matchup, same as Cincinnati versus Green Bay. So I'm fine with Drake May. He runs the ball a little bit. Not crazy, but 22 rushing yards per game. I'm okay with it. Bryce Young, he gets the amazing matchup of playing the Dallas Cowboys, who have been getting shredded by quarterbacks each and every single week. They're dead last, allowing 28.7 DraftKings points per game to the position. Now, this will be the real test this week because Bryce Young is not the greatest, but he is cheap. The stacks are very cheap. We'll see if Jadavian Sanders ends up playing, but you have Tommy Tremble, Ted McMillan, Xavier Legette if you're feeling nasty, maybe Hunter Renfrow if you're feeling even nastier. But you got to keep him in the player pool because he's dirt cheap, 23.5 implied team total. They are slide dogs, high over under. I mean, if you're going to play Bryce Young this year, this is your chance to do it. All right, heading over to our build, lots of good options, but I wouldn't say there's any real clear standout. But as I was talking, Justin Herbert was kind of speaking to me in my head. So we're going to roll with him for the video, $6,300. Very easy to stack with him, and I think we can make a pretty fun stackable lineup for this Los Angeles and Miami game. All right, moving on to running back. Pretty long list for me this week. I'm not going to go crazy in-depth here because a lot of these guys are basically the same plays. So we'll kind of do some quick hitters. But up top, we have the 2 big dogs, Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I get Jonathan Taylor has been absolutely incredible this year, but I don't really see why CMC is not the most expensive running back. I mean, he has been a workhorse this year, and he's using some dark magic because there's no way everybody else on San Francisco is injured and CMC is the healthiest guy there. It makes no sense, but it is what it is right now. But he is currently averaging 28.6 opportunities per game, a 26.7% target share, at 10.4 targets per game, nearly 8 receptions, nearly 80 receiving yards. I'll say he's been really awful on the ground, not really his fault, but 18.2 attempts per game, 0 rushing touchdowns, only 3.1 yards per carry. But you combine that together, you're getting a wide receiver 1 and like an RB5, basically. But CMC has been the man. And if we are getting a running back that can get wide receiver 1 numbers, the floor is just so unmatched by anybody else. I got to make him the RB1 over Jonathan Taylor, but both are fantastic plays. Taylor's in another great spot to score some touchdowns like he did last weekend. 27.5 implied team total. They are a touchdown favorite, averaging 22.5 opportunities per game this year. A little bit better matchup on the ground here versus Arizona, but you can't go wrong with either. My slight preference is going to be Christian McCaffrey because on DraftKings, It's all about that PPR. And even if he sucks on the ground like he does every single week, if you're going to pepper with targets and a chance for touchdowns through the air or even on the ground, he's still getting the opportunities. It just hasn't happened. Definitely has had a couple of goal line stuffs, unfortunately. But yeah, CMC has been the absolute man this year. Devontae Chan with no Tyreek Hill. We just know he's going to get the workload, nearly 20 opportunities per game this year, and heavily involved in the passing game. Now, compared to CMC, it looks a little lackluster, but still 20% target share, 6.5 targets per game, and 5 receptions. Had a really nice toe tap touchdown on like the right side of the end zone. It was very cool. That pretty much saved his day last week, because other than that, it was pretty inefficient. But I mean, the volume's there, and honestly, if you are stacking Justin Herbert, like, oh yeah, I think Devontae Chan does make quite a bit of sense, and you're getting a little bit of a discount compared to the top two, although the discount should be for HN. I don't think he's as good as, of course, of a play as CMC or Jonathan Taylor, but I do like him this week. Josh Jacobs, this is more of just a Vegas game script spot, 2 touchdown favorite, high implied team total. Cincinnati, not the greatest defense, of course, allowing the most fantasy points for getting the running back position this year at 33, and Jacob gets a ton of work. Of course, Wilson's a thing, Chris Brooks is there, and if they are blowing them out, maybe they get some burn, but this is a really good spot for Josh Jacobs. And I do like that price point on DraftKings. Javonte Williams has been awesome for the Cowboys. High implied team total is the same play as he is every single week. Nearly 20 opportunities per game. He's actually been pretty efficient. Close to 6 yards per carry this season. He gets goal line carries. It's a high scoring offense so far this season. I mean, nothing really not to like about Javonte. He's just a tournament play every single week for me. Kyron Williams in a good spot versus Baltimore, which again sounds crazy to say, but they're allowing the second most points per game running back position this season, and kind of the same thing, not quite the same as Jacobs because he's a big home favorite, 2 touchdown favorite, but they are a touchdown favorite, high implied team total. He gets the volume. The only concern is that maybe we see some more Blake Corum this week. Kyron Williams ended up going off in that game last week after Blake Corum fumbled, and of course that led to him getting benched for a little bit. Kyron comes in, although Kyron did kind of blow the game at the end for them, so we'll see how that ends up going. But only $6,300. I do think that is still worth a look. Rashad White with no Bucky Irving. He's going to get checkdowns. He's going to get the volume on the ground. $6,000. I don't see anything wrong with it. He's not as good of a value as he was last week, in my opinion, but it's not too far off. Rico Dowdle, a 200-yard rushing game last weekend. I don't think that's ever going to happen again, but another good spot here versus Dallas. I have no problem with that if you're not going with Bryce Young. Travion Henderson is more of a tournament dart throw for me because for whatever reason, Mike Vrabel hates him. I don't know if it's the boomer in him rewarding his veteran Stevenson or not, but he has a fumbling issue. We saw it last week. But the big thing is Antonio Gibson is done. So, I mean, they're going to be forced to have to give Travion Henderson the ball a little more. He's obviously a good pass catcher. So, tournament play only, but I do think he's in the player pool this week. And have fun choosing a Chargers running back. It is a great spot versus Miami. We saw Rico Dowdle did last week. Hassan Haskins, he's going to be more the bruiser early down back. Vital should be like the pass catching back, so pick your poison there, but really not that great of values. I was hoping they were a bit cheaper. Last week's running back position, it was value galore. I mean, if you couldn't get the running back position right last week, I don't know what you were doing. This week, it's definitely a bit tougher. All right, back to the bill. We need a couple of running backs. This is typically where I just plug in CMC and we figure it out later. Not really sure he's going to fit in my stack. I would love him to be in my lineup, but I'm just not sure. If we can afford him at the end, we'll upgrade, but for right now, let's try to get some of that 30-point implied team total from the Packers. We'll select Josh Jacobs and try to soak up like 2 goal line touchdowns, and then we'll be happy. At the end of the day, I think I saw some early props, roughly around 80 rushing yards. Of course, maybe get some passing work. We're just hoping for touchdowns there for Josh Jacobs, but excellent matchup. After that, I don't really love the 5K guys. The 6K range is probably where we're looking at for an RB2 currently. Javonte Williams is $6,400. I don't mind it. Carolina's not the pushover matchup it was in the past, but it's not something I'm going to completely avoid. Also, really like Kyron Williams. I don't really think we can go wrong with either here, and I'm kind of struggling in my own mind here right now. So can't go wrong with either. Let's just go with Javonte Williams. Just know I really like Kyron too. And then we have wide receivers. I'm not going to take too much time here because we already talked about the stacks that I like. I think we get the idea of who we like at the wide receiver position. Of course, there's always going to be one-offs that we can play in cash games. Perfectly fine, but I'll tell you right now, just an early approach here, like the eye test, I don't really see any value wide receivers I like. And of course, there's some that are going to project for decent value, but as far as like putting them on the video to actually talk about them, I don't really see anything. So it might be more of a balanced approach this week, but maybe some guys get rolled out and that opens up some more value. Like I said, it's only Tuesday. But if you do have the money, of course, Puka Nacua is always going to be the best option. He's averaging double-digit receptions this year, 35% target share, and this is the Baltimore defense that's only the second most points in the wide receiver position so far. I wish the spread was a little bit closer, but as we saw from the last game that the Rams were in, where they're 8.5, 9.5 point favorites, that did not seem to matter. So fire up Puka Nacua if you have the money for him, because he is going to be far and away the wide receiver one projection-wise on this slate. JSN has also been incredible this year, a 35% target share, a 50.4 market share of the team's air yards, averaging over 100 receiving yards per game. And it's also a pretty solid matchup here versus Jacksonville versus wide receivers. They're bottom half in the league. Now, the Jacksonville defense and Jacksonville in general has been much better this year, but it's been pretty tough to stop JSN. He's kind of been a cash game staple so far, but the price does keep rising a little bit. CeeDee Lamb, we don't know if he's going to end up playing or not. We did see him do a little bit of work in practice last week, rehab work, but that is no guarantee he will end up being back if he happens to be out. It's an upgrade for George Pickens, and Turpin was out last week, and we saw Ryan Flournoy, I just call him Flonase, over 100 yards last week. I don't think anyone really expected that to happen, but Dak Prescott has shown that if you're on the field, you can get some fantasy points from him so far this season. So if Lamb is out, it just ups everybody else, but I would like Pickens, obviously, the best. They catch a nice long touchdown last week, because thank goodness if he didn't, it was going to be a pretty bad day. Devontae Adams, if you were stacking with Matthew Stafford, you play Devontae Adams, you play Puka Nacua. That is how he scores fantasy points. Jalen Waddle will be fine in any format. Still seems a little bit too cheap with no Tyreek Hill. Ted McMillan, if you are stacking that game up. And really just as a one-off, I could see a lot of people going there because Dallas is the nut spot, allowing the most points per game to the wide receiver position. And then we have the LA trio. Kind of tough to project, but we do know where the ball is going on this offense, and it's going to these three wide receivers. Both Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen have roughly a 25% target share. Lab McConkey's down there 18.6. They get into the end zone last week, but has been pretty tough to trust him, but I am fine with any of those guys in tournaments this week. And I did throw a couple of more options down low because I feel like we were a bit scarce, but Chris Olave, I don't hate if you are using Drake May. He could be a nice run back option. On New Orleans, added Stephon Diggs. May's wide receiver one, because if you're playing Drake May, you don't want to play him naked. You could play Hunter Henry, but I would probably want to get Diggs in there. And then also Michael Pittman at $5,400. I do like him at that price point, but honestly, we're kind of splitting hairs between all these guys. All right, back to the build. This is going to be pretty easy. We have Justin Herbert. We have nobody paired with him yet. We're going to do two wide receivers. For me, I like QJ and I like Keenan Allen. I'm going to go with McConkey. Go for it. But I'm not going to in this build. And then I need a running back option. We did not go with the running back from Miami, so we are going to go with Jalen Waddle, who I believe is, $6,100. Decent game last week. And that fills that out. So now we have 3 positions left. $4,100 to do it. We always go with the cheap defense. That's roughly around $2K. I can't imagine we're breaking the bank at tight end, so flex might be a little iffy, but I think we can make this work, and I definitely don't think we're going to be able to afford CMC, unfortunately. And then we're going to talk some tight ends. Now, a lot of this can be tied to stacks. For example, if you have Dak Prescott, you play Jake Ferguson, especially if there's no CeeDee Lamb. He's getting nearly 10 targets per game this year, 23.5% target share, 8.2 receptions for a tight end is incredible. 8.2 receptions for Ferguson, 8.4 targets for McBride. Just to tell you guys the difference. I like both, but of course, Jake Ferguson is in a great spot. Panthers are allowing the second most points per game to tight ends so far, which is a little bit of a noisy stat, tight end position, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to see. Tyler Warren, the rookie, has been incredible. Safe floor, high ceiling, and high implied team total. If they get around the red zone, they're going to look for Tyler Warren. Tucker Kraft will be a viable option if you are using Jordan Love. I mean, you could play him as a one-off. The Bengals are currently dead last versus tight ends, but I do worry about the game potentially getting out of hand, but that's not something I try to worry too much when I build. I think it kind of gets overhyped a lot of weeks. Hunter Henry, if I have Drake May. Darren Waller, he currently has a 0% block percentage, but 72% of the routes. So that's exactly what you want to see out of a cheap tight end. We also saw his snaps go from, I believe, 28%. I want to say 53 or 58% the previous week. I mean, he's basically a wide receiver on that team with no Tyreek Hill. So $4,000, he will be viable. David Njoku, Dylan Gabriel in the center, ended up having a pretty solid game last week. Of course, you can still play Harold Fandon, but don't mind the price tag on Njoku. And then Tommy Tremble, if Jadavion Sanders happens to be out once again, he is basically free playing the Dallas defense that's been awful this year and could be a very cheap stacking option with Bryce Young. If you want to play CMC and you want to play Puka Nacua this week, stacking Bryce Young with like Ted McMillan and Tommy Tremble, I mean, it's going to give you all the salary you can ask for. Okay, let's finish this lineup off. We're going to go straight to defense and pick the cheapest one possible that I don't think is going to get absolutely blitzed. So Bengals, no thank you. Ravens, no thank you. Dolphins would make 0 sense in our lineup. Thank you on the Panthers. Titans don't look too bad. I don't love the Saints there. I think the Titans versus Geno Smith, I mean, we're going to pretty much be guaranteed turnovers, I think. I don't hate it. I wish they were playing at home, but They're on the short list. The Browns versus Aaron Rodgers and them. I don't hate that either. That should be kind of a dirty, sloppy game. Myles Garrett should to get some sacks there. Yeah, the Browns look pretty good, and the Titans look pretty good. I guess we'll go with the Browns right now. I mean, that is one of the better defensive units in the entire league with the best defensive player. Tight end, probably not going to be able to afford Ferguson. We might be able to, but I already have Javonte Williams. I don't know if I want to double up on the Dallas players. I guess we'll just play Tyler. I mean, Tyler Warren's about as safe as it gets. So I'll go with that route. $5,000 left. If I don't like what we have at 5K, I will go down to the Browns if we need like $100. So yeah, we have the Chargers duo there, but since I have the passing game, I don't want to get 5 players from Los Angeles. Calvin Ridley and Kendrick Bourne. You know, if all the wide receivers were out again, I'd have no problem with Kendrick Bourne, but as of right now, I do not know that information. Let's see if there's anybody we're missing. Like Chris Olave, I do like that. We kind of briefly talked about him. Travion Henderson, if we're going to go weird, but we need $100. So I guess we'll just take out the Browns defense. I mean, I'm not going to blow my lineup up over a defense, and then we'll just plug in the Titans there. We have $5,100 left, and that gives us Chris Olave. So here's the build. We have a double stack with Justin Herbert paired with Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen. Running back with Jalen Waddle. We have Josh Jacobs and Javonte Williams, 2 running backs that should get 20-plus touches in their respective games, their favorites, and pretty decent implied team totals. And Jacobs, of course, in a great matchup. We have Tyler Warren at tight end because he's just a wagon and is viable every single week. And Chris Olave was last piece fit, and the Titans, they fit. It's defense. Who cares? With that being said, that's all for today's video. So hope you enjoyed it. If you did, or even if you didn't, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel for brand new. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.